Mark, can you give some tips, please, on the best way to introduce a bit to a young horse?
The first thing with a bit, like if the horse is working really well in a halter, the next riding tool that is closer to a snaffle bit is the side pull or bitless bridle, where the reins come from the side, because that is close to snaffle riding, whereas a halter or bosal is more of a one rein riding, or a very subtle sort of tool, especially in a boat when you go like a bosal. Um, but the side pull, because it comes from the side, the reins pulling from one side or the other. But first of all, before you put the steel in the horse's mouth, a lot of things, and I think you can do this all the way through, right from when they're foals and even whatever stage you're at with your horse, is you just put a rope in their mouth, like as you're handling them, as you're sort of putting holders on, you let them take the rope in their mouth, get used to, having it in their mouth and taking the rope in and out of their mouth. And they just get so used to something going in their mouth quietly and out. And then you can also, just have like a loop around their head, or just use your lead rope and just teach them to sort of just give a little, yield a little. And if they've already established a backup in the halter, just get them to yield a little bit in the rope in their mouth is really important, um, because it's soft, it's not clangy, it won't clang their teeth or anything like that. And they can get very comfortable with yielding to the feel of something in their mouth. And then when you do go to putting a bit in their mouth, I think this is an interesting thing, which I think used to be in the old days. Is nowadays, well, in the old days, you seem to have, like, this is when they used to be bitsmiths. You used to have one saddle that seemed to fit most horses, and you had different bits for different horses. Now you seem to have like a commercial bit you buy from a factory that kind of roughly fits the size of your horse's mouth, and you've got three saddles for three horses or something like that, or different saddles for different horses. So I think when you find a bit, it's important you find one that's comfortable in your horse's mouth, and that sometimes you might want to go to someone like a bit fitter to make sure they fit comfortably in their mouth, not just something that's not quite right for your horse's mouth. And then when you put the bit in their mouth, they're used to taking a rope, they're used to opening up their mouth already. You can just get your fingers lightly in the mouth, and then it's about putting the bit in their mouth and letting them carry it and chew, let them drink a little bit with it, eat a little bit with it. So they just and have it fairly loose, so it's not pinched up too tight in the mouth. So they've got a bit of room to kind of like put their tongue over and under the bit. So like,
So you don't put the bit in and start riding them. You put the bit in and leave them
yeah,
to just wander around the yard.
it's just like putting a saddle on and
Hmm.
spending a few days doing groundwork with them, just carrying a saddle and things like that. It's you just let them carry a bit, and then if you're already riding your horse, you can ride your horse in the halter. So if you, by the sounds of it, you're riding in a halter, to get the horse better in used to the side pull of a snaffle bit, then riding a side pull is a closer comparison. But if you want to put the bit in your horse's mouth, it's carried the bit, it's comfortable, it's not kind of stressing on it. Once they stop stressing on the bit and sort of chewing, over chewing and stuff like that, and they start to go, oh yeah, this is fine, I'm comfortable with this, and you've already guided them a little bit with a rope in their mouth and stuff like that, then basically they're not far off being guided in a bit. They already know how to steer. You've already ridden in the halter and the side pull. Their backup's good and their balance is good, because you've already got to the feet through the reins, and you can get them to change their thought. And there's no more leaning and fighting and head shaking, and they're not bracing in in all their movements and stuff, then they're comfortable. They've got good flow. Then there's less conflict that's going to happen in their mouth. They've just got to learn to listen to it through the feel of their mouth. They kind of already know what to do. Whereas if you're teaching them everything in the bit, it's a tougher ask. So carry the bit for however long you think that the horse is getting very comfortable having it in its mouth. Ride your horse in a halter while it's got the bit in its mouth, and then at the end of a ride, maybe after you've ridden for half an hour, you might come back in the yards. The horse has carried the bit for that ride, and then you just finish the ride 10 to 15 minutes just steering with the bit. And what you might want to do is just have some clip-on reins. You clip onto the bit. You've still got the halter there. You can actually put a little bit of even halter pressure and bit pressure on at the same time. So there's a bit of the halter and the bit of the bit pulling at the same time, and the horse will. But if the horse reefs, it's going to more catch the halter pressure than it is the bit pressure, until the horse is kind of comfortable with that. And then slowly you just increase, I guess you lengthen off the halter feel, so that it's just the bit feel bringing the horse around. So first you get your horse turning around first, turning left, turning right, turning left, turning right. Then you might do a few halter backups where you back up, and then you might slowly bring the halter and the bit on at the same time. So there's nose pressure and bit pressure, and you get the horse to back up, and then slowly decreasing the bit pressure until the horse is backing, decreasing the halter pressure until the horse is backing just off the bit pressure. And then, you sort of aim to throw that away, the halter away. But before you go for your big solo ride outside, out to the back and beyond, you give your horse so many days or lessons in the yards, doing really well in the bit, so you can trot them up, you can slow them down, they're steering. You at least want them steering a little bit more at speed in the bit, so you can take the rein at a bit of a faster speed, and they're okay to come around that without any conflict. Because if you get a fright outside and you reef on that rein and they're not used to the bit and they're not used to the bit travelling at a faster speed, they get a big fright. It's different to then having a padded side pull pulling on them. So you've got to know that the horse is very comfortable. You can speed them up, bring them around in a bit of a hurry, and they're not sort of frightened when you increase the rein speed. But going back to increased rein speed, you've got to have your horse established at increasing and decreasing rein speeds in the other things that you're riding it in. So it's very comfortable. If the backup suddenly comes on quicker, the horse is okay to respond to that. If the turn comes on quicker, the horse is okay to respond to that. And then it's just an easy transfer if it's done in that order.
How do you know if your horse is ready to take a bit? If it's if you've been riding it in a halter or a side pull for a while, it's a young horse, it's a green horse, it's coming along well. When do you know? Oh, you're ready for a bit.
My sort of thing now is I don't do all my movements. I don't get everything established in a side pull and then go to a bit. But the basic tools of picking up two reins, backing up comfortably, and not feeling any resistance and sort of shuffling and twisting and pushing and jaw locking and all that sort of stuff. And if the horse can do a nice hindquarter yield, you can pick up an indirect rein and the horse just floats the hips over. It can bend all the way around and still keep its balance without kind of wriggling and fighting, and you can't feel tension through its feet, through its body, and it's not kind of still fighting to sort of be somewhere else and constantly kind of. And you can lead the front feet into a turn nicely. You can trot the horse into a backup. You got the horse really kind of not grabbing or wanting to push, and not a lot of, and if they're really sort of bendy headed and out of balance, that their feet and their head just don't feel like they're all in alignment, then I tend to spend more time in a side pull or something like that until that's all fixed. And then once they're all fixed, I'd start thinking about the bit. But that it's all dependent on the horse, their previous training, how you've trained them right through. But when they're supple and not fighting, and they're understanding that rein pressure in your basic rein positions and at greater speed, then it's okay to start introducing the bit and not have too much trouble.
And the side pull offers a bit more of a closer similarity to what the bit will do than the halter. So it is a bit of a stepping stone if people wanted it. Is that right?
Yes. So the side pull represents more of a snaffle sort of setup, whereas a halter comes from the back of the horses. So it's sort of closer to a soft spongy sort of bossel sort of thing, and a bossel, is completely different to a side pull. But for anyone who wants to get their two rein riding good, a side pull is I think a better option for young horses, a safer option, and such a lot more similar to what they're going to feel in the two rein bit, like a snaffle bit.
Because it's coming off the sides of their mouth.
Yep.
So the pressure's coming on the side as opposed to underneath, which is what the halter and the bossel both do.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about, the sort of the horses being able to play around with a bit or having sort of a special bit that tastes nice?
Yeah, there's a lot of thoughts. And years ago, I used to sort of have, a copper roller bits and different things that they'd sort of, create moisture, because there's this idea that the moisture in the mouth keeps the mouth supple. A supple mind keeps the mouth supple, so a horse that's comfortable in the bit will produce a normal amount of saliva, because they've got something in their mouth, so sometimes they will produce more saliva. But a horse that's producing a lot of saliva, you don't see horses producing lots of saliva, and it's not the saliva that keeps the horse's mouth soft. It's what keeps a horse's mouth soft and stopping it from getting calloused is pressure. So that if you've got pressure on a horse's mouth all the time, you're going to get calluses inside their mouth, and they're going to get nerve damage and stuff like that. So basically, you just want the horse with the normal comfortable moisture in its mouth. So the more comfortable a horse is in the bit, the more it just looks like a normal mouth, like there's no extra moisture there, because they're not constantly playing with it all the time or fighting it. The more they fight, the more they play with it, the more you see saliva and different things like that. So basically, a quiet mouth is a quiet mind. A noisy mouth is a noisy mind, and sometimes that noisy mouth becomes a habit that distracts the horse off the turn or thinking somewhere, and they start to over focus on playing with the bit. So sometimes when people put crickets and different things, they're like, there's a bit, it's called a cricket, but it makes a cricket sound, and the horses play with it. I find sometimes when horses start to overplay with the bit, they start to get distracted off the task of just following the rein, thinking in a new direction, finding their balance. It's almost like a fidget spinner. You start to focus on that more than what the teacher's saying in the classroom, sort of thing. So you do have to be careful that overstimulating bits, causing lots of kind of stimulation and playing, can distract a horse from the other things it really needs to be thinking about.
And at the end of the day, if the horse is in the right mindset, it doesn't need all of those extra sort of tricks and treats in a way.
Yep.